Good morning and welcome to UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. We are a group of spiritual free thinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and build a better world. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, we welcome you here. My name is Thomas Lyon. I'll be your worship associate for this morning. And our service today will be led by our member, Danielle Lyon. This service is also going to be live streamed on YouTube channel. If this is your first visit here, welcome. We invite you to sign the guest book in the back. If this is your 1000th time, we are always glad to have you here. And finally, be able to be back we're happy to finally be back inside together. Here are a few announcements. Please wear a mask. Masks are available in the back if you forgot one. We aren't able to sing in unison yet, but humming, swaying, dancing, or any other sort of expression is welcome. We will be collecting cards for joys and sorrows after the first hymn. Please fill them out, and we'll be gathering those that are typed into the chat box on Zoom. Are there any other announcements before we begin?
I have one. Please note that the meditation hymn today is a different one. It's 391 in the big hymn.
All right, we will now enter a space for worship. All right, I welcome you to join us in our chalice lighting words. Momentarily. With our people of faith, with joys and sorrows, hopes and needs, we light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
She pulled me into a warm embrace. "It's so good to see you." But her next question stopped me cold. "What's bringing you joy?" On that dreary March day, nothing came to mind. I had just come back from a week-long road trip with a good friend, but on Monday, work was looming, and I really wasn't ready to go back. In the past, when the telltale signs of burnout crept up and up and up, a week off had always been enough to reset, but I really didn't want to go back. Working in the rehab department of a long-term care facility has some beautiful ups, but also crushing downs. We were at the cusp of starting a big effort to change the way we were doing things, and I was invited to a lot of meetings on how we could do it and the quality improvement projects we could use to monitor our course. I'm quite the nerd about things like that, and personality tests, and more importantly, real life experience, throws me into the category of the reformer, someone who loves to take on a problem and look for ways to imagine change for the better. I could see at this moment how I could throw myself 200% toward progress, and it might have worked, but it wasn't where my heart was. I almost immediately came up with my escape plan. We were in a good financial spot, and could afford for me to step back and take a sabbatical of sorts. Focus on all the parts of my life neglected while I struggled irrationally to fix all of the facilities problems from the therapy gym. I drew up my courage to explain to my father, who has always worked hard, why and how it was I felt the need to step back, refocus, and take some time away from work. I was confident as soon as I was ready, there would be another position open, a luxury of working as a physical therapist in an area where the supply never quite meets the demand. But I wanted to be more intentional on my next search. The next week, I let my director know I was planning to leave. I recently heard a segment on NPR's On Being that explains the spot I found myself in better than I have ever managed to come up with myself. Author Catherine May was on the show to talk about her book, Wintering: The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times. What happens in our lives when we find ourselves faced with what she terms deeply unfashionable things, slowing down, resting, retreating. After a long, long time of seeking achievement and overachievement and approval, I was entering my first real season of winter. Said May in the interview, "It feels like everybody else is carrying on as normal, that you're the only one with this storm cloud over your head. And it's a very particular feeling because it brings up loads of emotions, I think. Not just sadness, but a sense of paranoia, a sense of humiliation, a sense that we have uniquely failed." And actually, whenever you start talking to people about your own winterings, they start telling you about theirs. And you realize what a huge community there could be if we talked about this in a different way. But I think for all of my life, my experience has been a feeling of falling through the cracks, being there on your own and looking up through those cracks at the world carrying on around you. I think that is part of why we come to church. Together, we find the community and support needed to step back for a moment or even a season to reassess, listen to our spirits, and then reemerge. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit and hum or sway along to our first hymn, number 90, From All the Fret and Fever of the Day. We are a community that holds one another in our celebrations and in our pain. We welcome you to share your joys and sorrows by writing them down on the card you found on your chair and placing it in the basket when it comes by you, or by typing into the chat box on Zoom. Know that whatever your heart is holding today, Whether shared or not, we are with you. Now it's time for a story. I heard a version of this first in 9th grade, and it has always stuck with me. There once was a man who worked long and hard to support his family. He was a dedicated, hard worker, and his boss recognized this and offered him a promotion and a raise. But he found that even though the man was still working hard and doing his job as carefully and thoroughly as ever, he was working fewer hours. The boss decided that maybe what he had offered just wasn't quite enough to capture the man's attention and full commitment to the position. So he offered him another promotion and another raise. The man accepted it gratefully, honored to be held in such esteem. But starting the next week, he began to work even fewer hours. So the boss, baffled, called him in for a talk. How is it I have offered you so much opportunity and reward, and it seems like you're walking away? Do you not want this job anymore? The man was surprised and suddenly quite a bit nervous. No. I'm so thankful for this job and how it allows me to support my family. But my family has only simple needs. With your generous raises, I am able to meet all of these needs in far less time. Why should I stay away from them more hours than necessary? The boss, of course, was still very confused, as the relentless quest to earn as much money as possible was top of his priority list. But being overall good-natured and still valuing the man's hard work, despite the fewer hours, nodded and walked quietly, and I like to think, thoughtfully away.
We now invite you into the spiritual practice of giving. Donations from all of you are the primary way we fund the good work of this congregation. 1/4 of this week's plate collection, or this season rather, will go to Happiness House, an organization that provides service to children and adults with and without disabilities in the Finger Lakes region. You can give this morning's offering by placing cash or checks into the basket as it's passed around. Or if you're joining us online, you can visit canandaiguauu.org/connection/donation or mail a check to UUCC at 3024 Cooley Road, Canandaigua, New York. In any case, make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. We now gratefully accept today's offering.
This morning, I would like to share a sorrow for my friend Melissa, who suddenly died last weekend, much too young, and for all of her friends and family. From you, we also have many joys to share today. Jill would like to share joy and pride for the LGBTQ plus group at school, advocating for more mental health support. Pat Harris is enjoying being in Seattle with her daughter. Dorothy is thankful that Dana, who was vaccinated, got a mild case of COVID and has recovered. And Nancy is also grateful that family members who had COVID over the holidays have recovered. I now ask Thomas to drop a stone for these and all the joys and sorrows left in the silence of our hearts. Whatever is in your heart today, we are with you. One of my first memories coming to UUCC was the minister talking about the still small voice inside. I've always been busy, very busy, overbooked, behind on something, and rushing to the next thing. It was a radical but important concept, and one I now value so much. I invite you now to get comfortable in your seats. Let your feet rest firmly on the ground, your gaze soften, or your eyes to close as you feel comfortable. Take a few deep breaths, and as we prepare to rekindle joy on this last day of the darkness season, listen to a bit more from Catherine May's Wintering, and then listen to that small voice inside on what these words might mean to you. A surprising cluster of novels and fairy tales are set in the snow. Our knowledge of winter is a fragment of childhood, almost innate. All the careful preparations that animals make to endure the cold, foodless months, hibernation and migration, deciduous trees dropping leaves. This is no accident. The changes that take place in winter are a kind of alchemy, an enchantment performed by ordinary creatures to survive. Dormice lying on fat to hibernate, swallows navigating to South Africa, trees blazing out the final weeks of autumn. It is all very well to survive the abundant months of spring and summer, but in winter, we witness the full glory of nature's flourishing in lean times. Plants and animals don't fight the winter. They don't pretend it's not happening and attempt to carry on living the same lives they lived in the summer. They prepare, they adapt, they perform extraordinary acts of metamorphosis to get them through. Wintering is a time of withdrawing from the world, maximizing scant resources, carrying out acts of brutal efficiency, and vanishing from sight. But that's where the transformation occurs. Winter is not the death of the life cycle, but its crucible. It's a time for reflection and recuperation, for slow replenishment, for putting your house in order, doing these deeply unfashionable things, slowing down, letting your spare time expand, getting enough sleep, resting is a radical act now, but it's essential.
still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain singing, calming our fears, quenching our tears, through all the years, singing.
At the close of the opening words, I thought I had a plan. I would take the time off and treasure it. Get the house in order, focus on a healthier diet, easily find time for the exercise my body needed, but was rarely getting. I set a deadline of 6 months before I would start to apply for another job. But the universe has a funny way of working. Not just sometimes, I found, but most of the time. Before we moved back to Canandaigua, I had spent the first 5 years of my career working at a beautiful, magical place in Rockland County called Helen Hayes Hospital, or as I've referred to it since the day of my job interview, Disneyland for rehab. I was surrounded by exceptional, caring therapists who took joy in mentoring others and helping those with life-altering injuries or diagnoses reach their highest potential and goals. 2 of my years were spent in the outpatient neuro department, where I was able to work on fine-tuning a plan unique to each person and saw some of what could be possible for those who had finished the first phases of recovery, but still wanted to work for so much more. I didn't know there was a clinic like this anywhere close to Canandaigua, maybe somewhere in Rochester, but I wasn't feeling particularly confident in my ability to sell myself at the time. I had recently been invited to the Winter Gala for Happiness House, and to my surprise, the keynote speaker described exactly the kind of therapy that I would like to be offering. She had struggled a long, long road of recovery after a stroke. Through acute rehab, followed by more rehab in a long-term care facility, followed by therapy at home, but still far from her long-term recovery goals when she started to go to Happiness House. There, she was able to continue to work ever slowly toward maximizing her independence in a world of ever-increasing pressure from insurance companies looking to maximize profits and lower their bottom lines somewhere deep under the basement of the executive tower. Happiness House, our service partner for this season, is a place where, with the assistance of Medicare and Medicaid waiver programs, people can be seen for a long, slow road of recovery without making consistent, impressive progress, or even for those who would slide backward without regular intervention, long-term skilled maintenance. They are better known as a preschool for kids with and without disabilities, but also offer a wide variety of services to individuals with developmental and acquired disabilities through the lifespan, including a structured day program, outpatient clinic services, service coordination, and even transitional housing for those who are almost ready to be living on their own, but need a little bit more support. I didn't really feel like I was ready for a new adventure, but since they had 2 job openings, and I didn't know how often that happened, I figured I'd put in just 1 application. If I didn't get it, I would take my time off, nothing really lost. Of course, they wanted me to start as soon as possible, last week if possible. I still wish I had found a way to take more time off in order to really reset. But over the past few years, I have been able to take a more gradual path of listening to that still small voice inside and making changes to rekindle my joy. The new position at Happiness House was exactly in my specialty area. And suddenly, I wasn't feeling suffocated by the responsibility of immediate life and death needs, the way I had felt in the hospital and the long-term care facility. I now have the opportunity to spend time building deep relationships with people, finding out what matters most to them, working together, and celebrating successes, big and small. I went down from 40 hours a week plus regular overtime to 37.5 hours a week, plus regular outside time spent on paperwork, but it's a step in the right direction. This year, I was also able to successfully request a change to the school year calendar. For the first time in my career, I will be able to be off from work for that magical time at the end of December when all of my teacher friends, including my sister, have been able to pause, reflect, and enjoy family without the rush to return immediately to work. Having weeks of pre-assigned time off to rest and recuperate without the guilt of picking an inconvenient time is well worth the slight cut in my pay for my intentional and requested demotion. I've been able to start planning ahead for how I would like to spend this extra time with friends and family instead of pushing myself to work and save the vacation for someday. I have to admit that in this season of my own wintering, I have also let some other responsibilities I've signed up for slide. I was told once that sometimes it's impossible to keep all of the balls in the air. The important thing to know is which ones are glass and will break if you drop them, and which ones are made of something sturdier and will be just fine if you set them down for a while. But I've also heard if you break enough dishes, eventually they will stop asking you to dry them. I took a strategy a bit closer to the latter, and I let all of my balls come clattering down to see what would be left. Honestly, I'm still working on finding ways to say no to things that don't help me or even take me away from reaching goals I have for myself. And also making sure to show up in an intentional and meaningful way for the things I have said yes to. Yesterday, I took a hike in the woods with a backpacking pack for the first time. I bought it about 5 years ago, but now finally felt like a good time to take it out of the box. The powdery snow sparkled on the forest floor, and with the sun, I found myself warm despite the 23 degrees registered on the thermometer. In the stillness of the trees, I felt the warming promise of spring and my joy moving from spark to flame.
We could pretend that we're walking on petals of light, golden light, wanting our love like a dance step master, turning from left to right. But after all the colored lights are gone, time will leave the ashes and the dawn. You rise and meet the day. I'm watching you go, it's like spying on hope, ever onward with more to burn. Giving your hands and your heart to the weave of the world, though it fights each turn. But you do not give up so easily. That's how I know you won't surrender me. You rise and meet the day. It's all I need, it's all I need to know. It's all I need to know. dreaded that some gloomy ingratitude would seize me. But you have held the dream like every morning finds a way to hang the sun up in the sky. And now I think I have it too. The greatest part I learned from you. You rise and meet the day. I can see kids, maybe yours, maybe not. Oh, I can hear what they'll say. Laughing at pictures with the old-fashioned hats and the clothes that we're wearing today. They will know the true and humble power of love that made it through the darkest hour. You rise and meet the day. It's all I need, it's all I need to know. It's all I need to know. You rise and meet the day. It's all I need, it's all I need to know. It's all I need to know.
Thank you, Bill. I invite you all now to rise for our closing hymn, number 4, I Brought My Spirit to the Sea. And as you go out to meet this and every day, I hope that you will find a way to take rest and respite when needed to rekindle your own joy and nourish relationships with family, friends, and the spirit within.
I brought my spirit to the sea. I stood upon the shore. I gazed upon infinity. I heard the waters roar. And then there came a sense of peace. Some whisper calmed my soul. Some ancient ministry of stars had made my spirit whole. I brought my spirit to the trees that loom against the sky. I touched each wandering, careless breeze to know if God was nigh. And then I felt an inner flame that fiercely burned my tears. Upright I rose from bended knee to meet the asking years.
Right. Please join me in our words of extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our heart until we are together again.